For 20 years, the intransigence of the Arab leadership had fomented blind hate on the part of the Arab world towards Israel, a hate which called for the destruction of Israel and the annihilation of its inhabitants. May 1967 dawned with tension on the borders of Syria and Israel as a result of the deployment of al-Fatah terrorist gangs under Syrian control into Israel for the purpose of murder and sabotage. A state of tension on Israel's borders was not new. The Six-Day War was born of this situation, but its immediate cause was false information given to the governments of Egypt and Syria by the government of Soviet Russia to the effect that Israel had massed a large number of brigades on Syria's frontier with a view to moving against Syria. On June the 9th, Nasser describes the receipt of this intelligence to the Egyptian people.
وقام أصدقاؤنا في الاتحاد السوفيتي باختار الوفد البرلماني الذي كان يزور موسكو في مطلع الشهر الماضي بأن هناك قصدا مبيتا ضد سوريا.
For the Soviet Union had fully espoused the cause of the Arabs against Israel and condemned Israel on every possible occasion. To quote but one statement by Mr. Fedorenko, the Soviet ambassador to the United Nations.
Советский Союз неоднократно обращал внимание правительства Израиля на то, что рискованная политика, которую на протяжении ряда лет проводит Израиль в отношении своих соседей, чревата опасностью, ответственность за которую ложится полностью на Тель-Авив.
The Soviet Union has often drawn the attention of the government of Israel to the fact that this policy of Israel, pursued for many years against its neighbors, is risky, is pregnant with danger, and that the responsibility fully lies with Tel Aviv.
And while the Soviet Union is thus accusing Israel of aggression, Nasser orders his forces into Sinai.
احنا أخيرا شعرنا بأن احنا قوتنا كافية وأن احنا في دخولنا أي معركة مع إسرائيل بعون الله نستطيع أن ننتصر.
We have recently realized that our forces are adequate and that we can win our war against Israel. Therefore, we have decided to take practical steps.
The move of Arab forces against Israel takes place against a background of suitable musical accompaniment.
Nasser will revenge. We shall destroy you. We shall burn you. We shall grind you into the dust.
Meanwhile, the population of Israel is going about its daily routine unconcernedly, and on May the 15th celebrates the 19th day of independence with a military parade in Jerusalem. President Shazar speaks of the long-hoped-for peace, which has so far failed to materialize.
השקט המיוחל ביחסינו עם שכנינו עדיין בושש לבוא.
Prime Minister Levi Eshkol reminds Israel's neighbors that peace and quiet on the frontiers must be mutual.
על מדינות ערב ועל מדינות העולם לדעת כי שקט בגבול ייתכן רק אם הוא הדדי.
Israel, bedecked with flags and bunting, is in holiday mood. The citizens dance in the streets, festooned with colored lights, and sing the new hit song, Jerusalem the Golden, which has swept the country. even as the strains of this song, which in a few weeks' time are to have added significance, capture the imagination of the Israeli public, other, more menacing sounds fill the ether in the Middle East.
فليتحرك إشكول لينفذ تهديده ولتطبق عليه جيوش العرب من سوريا ومن سيناء وليجد الشعب السائر في الأردن والسعودية فرصته لتصفية حماة الوجود الصهيوني في فلسطين.
Let Eshkol move, and then the Arab forces from Syria and Sinai will besiege him. Then the revolutionary people in Jordan and Saudi will take the opportunity to remove the Zionists from Palestine.
Radio Cairo, and the same radio on May the 17th.
إن شعبنا العربي قد عقد عزمه على تطهير فلسطين منكم. فاحزموا حقائبكم واهربوا من فلسطين قبل أن نأتيكم بالموت.
The Arab nation has decided to cleanse Palestine of your presence. Pack your bags, therefore, and flee from Palestine before death overtakes you.
And as the Arab mobilization and moves, accompanied by dire threats, continue, Israel maintains a strained silence until May the 20th.
The military spokesman announced this evening that following the entry of a large number of Egyptian troops to eastern Sinai and following the withdrawal of the United Nations emergency forces at the request of Egypt, the Israel Defense Forces have taken necessary steps to meet all eventualities. These steps include a limited call-up of reserves, which has already been completed.
The Israeli and Egyptian forces along the frontier were separated from each other by the United Nations Emergency Force, UNEF, which had been established for this purpose by the United Nations following the Sinai campaign in 1956. For 10 years, this force had watched over the frontier and the free passage of ships in the Straits of Tiran. Then suddenly, on the 17th of May 1967, U Thant, Secretary General of the United Nations, receives a dispatch from the Foreign Minister of the United Arab Republic requesting the immediate removal of these United Nations forces. Within hours of receiving this letter, and without reference either to the Security Council or the General Assembly, the Secretary General orders a withdrawal as requested by Egypt. World reaction is one of shock and incredulity, for it is obvious that this is a step in the direction of war. Mr. George Brown, the Foreign Secretary of Great Britain, reacts in the House of Commons. It cannot be right that when a fire is known to be imminent, the fire brigade should be ordered to depart. Inexorably, the tide of events moves towards war. On May the 22nd, Nasser orders close the Straits of Tiran, Israel's sea gateway to Africa and Asia. Nasser announces this crucial act of war when addressing his pilots at Advanced Air Headquarters in Sinai.
بيهددوا بالحرب اليهود. بنقول لهم أهلا وسهلا إحنا مستعدين للحرب.
The Jews threaten war. We tell them, you are welcome. We are ready for war.
Israel's Foreign Minister Abba Eban sums up the new situation which has been created.
Sharm el-Sheikh at the entrance to the Gulf of Aqaba, the Straits of Tiran, legality walked out, blockade walked in. The peace of the world trembled.
Addressing the Knesset, Prime Minister Eshkol makes yet one further appeal for peace to the nations of the world.
ההתפתחות האחרונה מלמדת בעליל על המשמעות המסוכנת המקופלת במהלכיה של מצרים. אני קורא לגורמים הבינלאומיים לגלות אחריות מעשית ויעילה לשמירת השלום.
The latest development, he says, reveals the inherent danger of Egypt's moves. I appeal to the world to show practical and effective responsibility in the maintenance of peace. World opinion is indeed aroused, and the position of the United States of America is set out by President Johnson.
The United States considers the Gulf to be an international waterway and feels that a blockade of Israel shipping is illegal and potentially disastrous to the cause of peace.
The Prime Minister of Great Britain, Mr. Harold Wilson, speaks in the same vein.
It is the view of Her Majesty's government in the United Kingdom that the Straits of Tiran must be regarded as an international waterway through which the vessels of all nations have a right of passage.
But world opinion is not uniform. The Soviet government issues a statement to the effect that should anyone try to unleash aggression in the Near East, he would be met not only by the united strength of the Arab countries, but also by strong opposition to aggression from the Soviet Union and all peace-loving states. Encouraged by this support and blinded by their own propaganda, the Arab war hysteria grows in intensity. Daily, Arab radio stations blare forth exhortations to murder, to destroy, to massacre. The Western world looks on in horror as the Middle East moves slowly but surely towards war. But even in the West there is a break, which is emphasized by Monsieur Georges Gors, the French Minister of Information.
C'est un fait que l'entrée du golfe d'Aqaba, vous le savez comme moi-même, est commandée par la petite place de Sharm el-Sheikh et par l'île de Tiran, qui sont territoires égyptiens, et que par conséquent l'entrée du golfe d'Aqaba se situe dans les eaux territoriales égyptiennes.
The Gulf of Aqaba, Sharm el-Sheikh, and the Straits of Tiran are Egyptian territory.
Nasser leaves no doubt in anybody's mind as to his intentions when he addresses the press of the world in Cairo on May the 28th, and emphasizes his unwillingness to accept any form of coexistence with Israel.
حقوق شعب فلسطين يجب أن تعاد لشعب فلسطين ولا نقبل أي أسلوب للتعايش مع إسرائيل.
We accept no kind of coexistence with Israel. The rights of the Palestinians should be given back to them.
Indeed, he had made his position even more clear but 2 days earlier, on the 26th of May, when he addressed the Federation of Arab Workers and assured them that the war would be a total one, and its purpose would be to destroy Israel.
معركة هتكون معركة شاملة وهيكون هدفنا الأساسي هو تدمير إسرائيل.
Israel's forces are mobilized, as is indeed the entire nation. A nation is mobilized as swiftly, silently, and efficiently a people overnight becomes an armed force. Years of training and preparation have brought forth a machine which operates smoothly and effectively. Husbands, fathers, brothers and sons leave their jobs and an hour later are in uniform manning tanks, maintaining aircraft, or standing watch on torpedo boats. Thousands of women and children in the towns and the villages dig up parks and gardens and create shelters and trenches. The nation's youth lies in the sands of the Negev, faces the Syrian heights, and digs in the Jerusalem hills, waiting, training, chaffing, missing home and its amenities, impatient.
Feel fine, up to expectation, waiting for the moment.
Would you say that this sums up the feeling of your colleagues?
I think so. The moral is very high and we're all waiting.
Is there anything you'd like to have that you haven't got?
Yes, of course, a shower if possible.
Hundreds of representatives of the press, broadcasting and television services of the world pour into the country and report the period of preparedness and waiting in Israel.
פתח, נפיץ 2400, נגמש על אש.
נפיץ 2400 על...
נהג עצור.
יורה.
I'll be looking at it, yes. And when I see that it's, revealed as a tank, yes, then I'll turn and start the open.
Okay, fine.
צוות, עמוד, נוע. צוות, על הרכב, עלה.
מונע.
נהג ייכון לתנועה לאחור, אחורי מהיר. נהג אחורה. ידית ימין.
This is a unit of Centurion tanks in the Negev desert a few miles from the Egyptian border. The heart of the Israeli army and the key to its past successes.
The entire nation is waiting. Volunteering exceeds all expectations. School children man hospitals and deliver the mail. Civil defense preparations are quietly set into motion. The troops wait patiently. Mobilization figures are 120% in all units. Men released for age or medical reasons report to their units and refuse to leave. This is a period which will never be forgotten. The nation stands united as never before against the danger of annihilation. The nation becomes as one family. People are transformed overnight. Gone are the daily complaints and irritations of everyday life. In their place is a spirit of unity of purpose and of firm determination. Meanwhile, in the south the troops lie in wait in the sands of the desert, dreaming of the delights of a cold shower, till one day the dream materializes in the form of a water tanker with a noisy motor.
פשוט מרגישים רעננות. חבר'ה, מי שגמר לצאת החוצה, תיתנו לאחרים, נו.
A high state of preparedness is maintained in all units. As dusk falls, patrols move out in the frontier areas along dark paths to their positions.
משמאל ומימין, שדות מוקשים. אנשים הולכים על הדרך, על פס הקוליס. קש, אל תיכנס. השטח משמאל הוא גם כן ממוקש.
Such preparedness is not out of place, for across the borders, Arab leaders continue to fan the flames of war and hate.
اقتلوا واسحقوا واذبحوا غدا سنقذف بجثث الصهاينة الدنسة في البحر وخارج مياهنا الإقليمية لتحملها أساطيل واشنطن ولندن هدايا لجونسون وويلسون.
Kill, crush, massacre. Tomorrow we will throw the filthy bodies of the Zionists into the sea, and thus they will be collected by the navies of Washington and London as a present for Johnson and Wilson.
Thus Damascus Radio, while to the south, in Egypt, the Palestinian Arab leader Ahmed Shukeri is no less explicit.
إن لمنظمة التحرير الفلسطينية الآن جيشا في سوريا وجيشا في العراق ولنا جيش في سيناء وجيش في غزة هؤلاء هم جيشنا وجنودنا.
The Palestinian Liberation Organization now has an army in Syria, in Iraq, in Sinai, and in Gaza. This is our army. These are our soldiers, whom we have trained for the day of battle. They can invade the usurped fatherland and pour fire and flame on the soil of Israel and wreak destruction upon it.
The ring tightens around Israel as one Arab country after another proffers support to Nasser. Of great concern to Israel is Jordan's adherence to a defense pact whereby King Hussein places his army under the command of an Egyptian general. In his May Day speech, Nasser depicted Hussein.
ملك الأردن العميل اللي إذاعته قالت هذا الكلام المتعاون مع الاستعمار خدام الاستعمار.
Imperialist agent and servant. He intends to deceive the Arab masses and people.
30 days later, he and King Hussein kiss and sign a defense pact. Forgotten is the Hashemite harlot, Zionist lackey, and the imperialist agent. The struggle continues on the political front. The government of Israel hears a report from the foreign minister on his meetings in London, Paris, and Washington. The entire nation, both at the front and in the rear, awaits with anticipation the decision of the government. But the government decides to continue to wait even further. There is talk of the creation of an international force on the part of the seagoing nations which will guarantee the passage of the Straits of Tiran. Prime Minister Levi Eshkol reports to the people on the decision of the government.
הממשלה קבעה הנחיות להמשך הפעילות המדינית בזירה העולמית המכוונת להמריץ את הגורמים הבינלאומיים לנקיטת אמצעים יעילים להבטחת חופש השיט הבינלאומי במצרי טיראן.
the government has set out guidelines of its policy in the international field designed to encourage effective international action and guarantee freedom of passage in the Straits of Tiran.
Tension rises in Israel as voices are raised accusing the government of excessive caution. World Jewry, anxious for Israel's existence, mobilizes to support Israel in a most impressive demonstration of unity and self-sacrifice. Contributions are without precedent. Long lines of volunteers form at recruiting offices and mass demonstrations take place. At Hyde Park in London, Jews and non-Jews demonstrate for Israel.
When Jews took upon themselves an oath, they raised their right arms and they said, and you say it with me, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, may my right hand be forgotten. Repeat after me. Raise your right hands. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, may my right hand lose its cunning, and may God be with us and with Israel.
Meanwhile, in France, the French people, unlike their government, give voice to their feelings of anxiety and friendship for Israel. The troops in Israel learn the new songs which will remind them all their lives of these days, initially of waiting and tension, and later of heroism. A favorite one is Nasser awaits Rabin. But there is a growing feeling of impatience and unrest both amongst the troops and the civilians, and General Rabin addresses his troops in a broadcast.
יש בכוחנו לא רק לבלום תוקפנות, אלא גם להכריע את צבאות האויב על אדמתם הם. כל זה בתנאי שלא נשתעשע באשליות כי הסכנה חלפה או נחלשה.
We are capable not only of blocking aggression, but also of overcoming the enemy on his own soil, provided that we maintain our guard and do not delude ourselves into believing that the danger is past, and provided that we reveal sufficient patience and strong nerve by maintaining our preparedness.
As Israel follows the deliberations in the United Nations patiently, Russia's Fedorenko blandly accuses the United States and Britain.
These countries are artificially heating up the climate for reasons that have nothing to do with a true concern for peace and security in the Near East.
The Arab hysteria reaches new heights. King Hussein, hitherto regarded as a moderate Arab leader, calls on his troops.
اصمدوا اصبروا صابروا رابطوا اقتلوهم حيث وجدتموهم بأسلحتكم بأيديكم بأظافركم بأسنانكم.
Kill them everywhere you find them, with your weapons, with your hands, with your fingernails, with your teeth.
And so Israel waits, facing 250,000 Arab troops massed along its frontiers, some 2,000 tanks, of which over 1,000 are in Sinai, and over 500 first-line jet aircraft, while hour by hour all the radio and television stations around the beleaguered country promise the citizens of Israel murder, rape, massacre, and death. But Israel faces the peril in a confident mood. Party differences are forgotten, as for the first time in the history of the State of Israel, a national coalition government is formed. The mood of the nation is reflected on June the 3rd in the words of General Moshe Dayan, who but a few days before had been appointed Minister of Defense.
Well, they have plenty of tanks and troops and everything, too much, too many, and we have much less than they have. The number and of their forces is bigger than ours, but still I hope that we can make it. But I personally not only wouldn't expect, but really don't want anyone else to fight for us. But if somehow it will come for real fighting, I wouldn't like American or British boys to get killed here in order to secure Israel.
Following General Dayan's statement, there is an air of relaxation. Troops on leave are seen on the beaches and in the streets. The prophets of war, who invariably assured you that tonight is the night, are silent on this day. Foreign correspondents leave Israel for a break abroad. This is Israel on the 4th of June. Monday, June the 5th, 1967, dawns on the forces poised as they have been for weeks against one another. The morning news is that more Russian warships are passing through the Bosphorus, while consultations to prevent an outbreak of war are taking place between the Western powers. People in Israel are already at work or are queuing for lifts to get to work from passing car drivers who have voluntarily replaced the buses away on active service. Suddenly, at 10 minutes past 8 in the morning, a music broadcast is interrupted for an announcement.
כאן כל ישראל ברשת ב', השעה 8:10. האזינו להודעת דובר צה"ל. משעות הבוקר המוקדמות של היום מתחוללים קרבות עזים בין כוחות אוויר.
The Egyptians this morning launched an air and land attack. At dawn, Egyptian armor advanced on the Negev. Our forces are engaging the enemy. At the same time, radar screens showed Egyptian jet aircraft flying towards the Israel coast. Similar attempts were made in the Negev region. Planes of the Israel Air Force are engaging the enemy planes.
The public receives the news with a feeling of apprehension for the near and dear ones, for Israel's defense force is a reserve army in which every household has its representatives. For reasons of policy, no news of Israel's victories is made available, and indeed, the only news released to the public relates to Arab activity. The Arab radio stations excel themselves with reports of victories on all sides, reports which they believe themselves, and they continue to depict the fate of massacre and destruction which now awaits Israel. Even as Arab air power is being destroyed, and as Arab airfields are a mass of smoking ruin, Cairo Radio informs the public in Israel in Hebrew that Egypt enjoys complete mastery of the air.
القهير حيالوتها أفيرها عربيين نهنيم مشليتا محليت بأفير أوي فافوي لابو شعيم.
The Arab air forces enjoy complete mastery of the air. Woe to the criminals.
And as Israel's forces struggle in the sands of the Sinai desert, the capital city of Jerusalem is shelled indiscriminately, as are the border settlements along the Jordanian and Syrian frontiers. Many casualties are incurred in Jerusalem in this second Arab bombardment of the holy city in 20 years.
Israel has taken up arms in self-defense, thus exercising her inherent rights under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. Having mentioned the United Nations, let me say that it has done nothing and attempted little to prevent this attempt to launch a destructive attack upon a member state.
Foreign Minister Eban's press conference was interrupted by an air raid alarm. The people in Israel face war for the third time in 20 years, as at 11 o'clock in the morning, Defense Minister Moshe Dayan addresses the Israel Defense Forces.
We seek not conquests. Our purpose is solely to put an end to the attempts of the Arab armies to overrun our country and to smash the ring of aggression and siege which surrounds us. They are more than we are, but we shall be able for them. We are a small but brave people, eager for peace, but willing to fight for our life in our own country.
The public hears his words with mixed feelings, for there is no news which might be of encouragement, and the Arab radio continues its campaign of vilification and threats. And as the sounds of hate fill the ether and the noise of war reverberates across the battlefields, Prime Minister Eshkol addresses the nation at midday.
גם ברעום התותחים לא יחדל רצוננו בשלום. אנו חוזרים ומכריזים, לא נתקוף שום מדינה כל עוד לא פתחה היא במלחמה נגדנו. אך כל התוקף אותנו ייתקל במלוא יכולתנו להתגונן ולהביס כוחותיו.
Even as the guns roar, our desire for peace has not been weakened. We emphasize once again, we shall not attack any nation which has not commenced warlike activities against us. But every attacker will encounter our full strength, used to defend ourselves and to defeat his forces.
But it was only 18 hours after the outbreak of war that the nation and the world learnt of one of the most brilliant air victories in the history of warfare and of the incredible advances made in the first day of war. The Chief of Staff, General Rabin, reports to the nation in the early hours of June the 6th.
ברצוני למסור בקצרה מה המצב בשעה זו. בחזית הדרום, בגזרת צפון סיני, כבשו כוחותינו את רפיח, שייח' זוויד, ולעת ערב כבשו את אל-עריש. טור אחר עלה על כביש אל-עריש אבו עגלה. כוחות אחרים כבשו את ח'אן יונס ואת דיר אל-בלח, ונלחמים עתה בשערי העיר עזה.
General Rabin describes the advances made by Israel's armed forces. He continues, during the day, the Israel Air Force dealt a strong blow to the Egyptian, Jordanian and Syrian air forces and attained air supremacy in the entire region. He is followed by Brigadier General Hod, commander of the Air Force.
היום התמודדנו עם חילות האוויר של מצרים, ירדן, סוריה ועיראק. במערכה זו השמדנו כ-400 מטוסי אויב. במצרים כ-300 מטוסים, מהם 30 מפציצים כבדים מסוג טופולוב 16.
In today's battle we destroyed about 400 enemy aircraft. In Egypt, about 300 aircraft were destroyed. In Syria, some 52 aircraft. In Jordan, 20 Hunter aircraft and 7 transports and helicopters. And in Iraq, 6 MiG-21 fighters and 3 Hunter aircraft were destroyed. In this fighting, we lost 19 pilots, 8 killed and 11 missing, and 15 aircraft.
The main battle of the ground forces is in the Sinai Desert. Facing 7 Egyptian divisions, including 2 armored ones, are 3 Israeli divisional groups under Brigadier General Gavish, the northern one commanded by Brigadier General Tal, the central one by Brigadier General Yoffi, and the southern one commanded by Brigadier General Sharon. Battle is joined in the Khan Yunis Rafah area, where the force under General Tal breaks through the heavy Egyptian defences and fans out to the south towards Rafah el-Arish and to the north along the Gaza Strip in order to silence the Egyptian positions which this morning had commenced shelling Israeli border villages mercilessly. The code word Sadin Adom, red sheet, is given shortly before 8, and in General Tal's headquarters it sounds like this. At the same time, General Sharon's forces received their orders to move from him. These forces moved to take the very heavily fortified position of Katif, covering the vital crossroads at Abu Agela, the control of which is essential in any operation designed to break into Sinai. A major infantry effort at night, followed by an armoured breakthrough in the morning, opens the central route into Sinai. This operation is facilitated by the use of helicopter-borne paratroopers who land at night in the centre of the Egyptian gun concentrations covering this vital main position and destroy them. The armoured force in the north takes El Arish. Part of the force continues along the northern axis parallel to the sea, while the remainder turns south to deal with the fortified position of Bir Lachfan. A pitched tank battle takes place here.
כאן משמאלי, מעבר למערך שלנו, מערך שגם פה נמצא האויב, נראים 3 טנקים בוערים. מחזה 4 טנקים, 5 טנקים בוערים. רבותיי, זהו מחזה מרחיב. טנק נוסף נפגע, 6 טנקים בוערים.
The southern divisional group closes off the Egyptian forces endeavouring to withdraw to the Mitla Pass, covering the approaches to the Suez Canal, and destroys them, while in the central sector, the second largest tank battle in history takes place in the area of Wadi Malaise and the Mitla Pass, with some 1,000 tanks participating. Israel's mastery of the air plays a vital part here, as the Air Force creates havoc among the retreating Egyptian columns. The last battle on the northern axis, before reaching the Suez Canal, is described in vivid detail by a reporter of the Israel Broadcasting Service.
סע קדימה, תעלה עליהם הלאה, תעלה הלאה. לא לעצור! סע הלאה. רגע, אתה תסתכל רק לעבר האוהל הזה. יש לך מעצור? טוב, אוקיי. בוא תעבור לפניו.
נכניס תולר אחד ואני אסע קדימה.
בסדר, מהמרחק הזה הוא יפגע בו.
הלו, נכניס תולר קדימה, גשת קדימה.
מהמרחק הזה הוא יפגע בו.
יהיה בסדר, זה סתם חתרים.
השמיני לשישי, 1967, השעה היא 7:30 בערב, אנחנו בתעלת סואץ.
June the 8th, 1967. It is now 7:30 in the evening. We have reached the Suez Canal. On the 7th, a day before, Sharm el-Sheikh was taken in the south by a naval force, and the first Israeli ship, the Dolphin, steams through, thus exercising freedom of passage through the Straits of Tiran for the first time in less than 3 weeks since Nasser had declared war by closing them. In less than 4 days, a bitterly fought war of movement without let-up and without sleep has taken place. 7 divisions, including some 800 tanks, the bulk of the Egyptian army, have been destroyed, and the Israeli flag flutters on the banks of the Suez Canal. While the main struggle was taking place in Sinai, the battle which captured the imagination of the people of Israel and of the Jewish people throughout the world was that fought against Jordan. King Hussein, whose forces are under Egyptian command, opens the attack by indiscriminate shelling of the capital city of Jerusalem and of the villages along the Israeli frontier. When his troops take Government House, occupied by the United Nations observers, it is clear that he means war, and the Israeli forces react accordingly. Forces of the Central Command under Brigadier General Uzi Narkis and of the Northern Command under Brigadier General Elazar smash the strongly fortified Jordanian lines and after a heavy battle take the West Bank, including such centers of history as Nablus, Jericho, Hebron, and Bethlehem. But the most bitter struggle is in the area of Jerusalem. A crack paratroop brigade breaks through the heavily defended fortifications in the north of the city and in a most costly attack links up with Mount Scopus and occupies the heights surrounding the ancient city. The Air Force holds the Jordanian armored forces attempting to reach the city from the Jordan Valley at bay.
מצד שמאל, ענן עשן שחור ועצום מכסה כרגע את הרכס, זהו רכס שועפאט. פה לפנינו, כמעט בגובה אחד איתנו, מתעופפות כמה סנוניות, וממש כמעט אין שום הבדל. רק רגע, האווירון כרגע צולל מעל הגבעה הצרפתית, נסיקה של 90 מעלות כלפי מעלה.
The old city is surrounded, and one of the greatest moments in the 4,000-year-old history of the Jewish people approaches. Every effort is made to spare the holy places. Loudspeakers on the Israeli side call on the Arab troops in the old city to lay down their arms. But to no avail, and the Israeli forces are obliged to fight. The break-in point is chosen at Sha'ar HaArayot, the Lion's Gate, known also as St. Stephen's Gate. Here are the words of Colonel Mordechai Gur, commanding the paratroop brigade, to his battalion commanders, ordering one of the most momentous operations in the 4,000-year-old history of Jewish arms.
אנחנו יושבים על הרכס שצופה אל העיר העתיקה, ועוד מעט אנחנו עומדים להיכנס אליה. העיר העתיקה של ירושלים, שמאז כל הדורות חולמים עליה ושואפים אליה. אנחנו נהיה הראשונים להיכנס אליה. הטנקים של איתן מתקדמים משמאל וייכנסו לשער האריות. לנוע אל השער. מסדר סיום יהיה על הרחבה למעלה. עד כאן עבור.
These words will live in history as long as the Jewish people. A short, fierce battle, the forces break into the old city, and then they reach the holiest objective of all, the Wailing Wall, a remnant of the Jewish temple. The pent-up emotions of 2,000 years break out as these battle-hardened warriors lean weeping against the stones smoothed by centuries of Jewish tears. The senior chaplain of the forces, Rabbi Goren, leads them in a prayer of thanksgiving. Those who fell are remembered by their comrades in their hour of victory as the traditional prayer for the dead, the Kaddish, is recited.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה ואומר דברה קהותי וימליך מלכותי ויצמח פורקני ויקרא משיחי היכון וימכון.
The few privileged in history to be present on this awe-inspiring occasion spontaneously break into the national anthem at Tikva. The traditional ram's horn, the shofar, which has heralded all great Jewish events in history for thousands of years, is heard once again on the holiest site in Jewry. The feelings of a nation on this historic occasion, moving beyond the power of words to describe, are echoed at the Wailing Wall by Defense Minister Moshe Dayan.
We came back now, we rejoin our holy places in order not ever to be departed from them.
ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא
Meanwhile, the Syrians, whose government had reached previously unattained heights in extreme hatred of Israel and had plunged the area into the turmoil of this war by its actions, continued to shell without let-up the Israeli border villages and mount a number of unsuccessful infantry and armored attacks. On the 9th of June, the Israeli forces counterattack, and in a short, bitter, and very costly struggle, which will go down in history as a classic in warfare and as a testimony to the selfless bravery of Israel's troops, the Syrian garrison town of Quneitra is taken, and a line established which removes all danger of shelling from the Israeli border villages. The attack is carried through against the heaviest odds, with the Syrians enjoying complete topographical advantage.
מטחי התותחים הולכים וגוברים עכשיו, הן התותחים שלנו והן התותחים הסוריים המפגיזים קרוב מאוד לשיירה. עכשיו כבר לא שומעים תותחים בודדים, אלא רצף אחד ארוך של פגזים שנשמע כרעם אדיר.
Tel Fachar, Tel Aziziyat, these are new names in the history of Jewish bravery, and they will live, for here some of the fiercest fighting of the war took place, with every foot of ground contested in bitter hand-to-hand fighting. An officer of the Golani Brigade Reconnaissance Unit, wounded in hand-to-hand combat and evacuated to hospital, is asked how he came to return to his unit so quickly.
לאחר הקרב פינו אותי לשם, חפשו אותי, ונכנסתי בדלת אחת והסתלקתי בדלת השנייה. הייתי צריך להוביל את החטיבה לקונטרה, ואומנם כך היה.
He describes how he was evacuated, bandaged, entered the ward through one door, escaped through a second door, and returned to his unit because, as he puts it, we had to lead our brigade to Quneitra, and so we did. A main factor in Israel's success are her officers and NCOs who lead their troops into battle fearlessly. A young officer on the Syrian front describes his battalion commander.
We were lying flat on the ground as bullets whistled all around us and hit anybody who raised his head. He walked as if between drops of rain, upright in the face of the firing. We all got up after him, anxious more for him than for ourselves. That's how we got to the objective. He ran through the hail of bullets, and I remember his words as if he said them now. He said, "Here every one of you will walk upright. None of you will bow or bend." We got up, we followed him, despite the fact that the moment before we were convinced that to get up meant certain death.
The morning after the attack begins, Brigadier General El-Azhar, General Officer commanding Northern Command, reports by telephone the collapse of the Syrian forces to General Rabin, the Chief of Staff.
כן, מדבר. תשמע, זה כבר מערך שבור. הם לא עומדים בזה. ואני עכשיו דוחף פנימה. כן, אני דוחף. תכף נראה, מיד נראה תוצאות. יש בריחות כבר. מפוצצים תחמושת, מפוצצים תותחים, עוזבים מוצבים. הצבא הזה גמור ונשבר.
Thus ended one of the great epics in the history of a nation replete with epics. A small, outnumbered people, facing the threat of annihilation, rose and fought for its existence against the armies poised to destroy it. The Jewish people throughout the world, united as never before around beleaguered Israel, and silent generations of Jews who had been massacred and died in the defense of their religion, their ideals, and their people, looked across the centuries tearfully and gratefully at this small and privileged group living in the state of Israel, which had created and lived these great hours. But even in its hour of victory, Israel sought not vengeance but peace. This was reflected in Israel's appeal, uttered by Foreign Minister Eban to the United Nations on June the 6th, when the struggle was at its height.
Let us build a new system of relationships from the wreckage of the old. Let us discern across the darkness the vision of a better and a brighter dawn.